How a stranger saved me from taking my own life. This happened a while ago, and to be honest, I'm still not entirely sure why I'm sharing this. Maybe it's because I've never told anyone, not even my closest friends. Maybe it's because, looking back, I still can't believe it. But here goes. I was at rock bottom. I don't know how else to explain it. It's hard to describe the kind of emptiness that settles into your bones after you've lost everything. Your job, your relationship, your sense of purpose. My name's Chris, and I was 29 when this all went down. If you had asked me a few years before that, I would have told you I had it all figured out. I had a decent job, a girlfriend I thought I was going to marry, friends who seemed to care about me. Life was going according to plan, or so I thought. Then Anna, my girlfriend, left me. Just like that. I remember the day so clearly. It was a Saturday afternoon, and we were sitting on the couch in my apartment, watching some dumb show. Everything was normal, or at least it seemed normal. Then she looked at me, her eyes distant, like she had something to say but wasn't sure how to say it. "I think we should break up," she said. I swear, it felt like the world tilted beneath me. We tried to talk it through, but in the end, it was clear. She wasn't happy anymore. I wasn't the guy she wanted. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I thought maybe she just needed space, time to figure things out. But after a few weeks, the calls stopped coming. The messages grew shorter. And one day, she just disappeared. A few months later, my job let me go. I was working at a marketing agency trying to climb the corporate ladder. But in the end, it wasn't enough. They found someone younger, more eager, and I was given the boot. It wasn't even that I cared about the job. I hated it. But the way they did it, like I was disposable, like I had given so much of myself for nothing. That's when the weight really started to settle in. I didn't know what to do anymore. I couldn't focus. I couldn't find the energy to put myself out there. Everything I had worked for, everything I had thought I was building, was gone. And the worst part? I felt like no one really noticed. Not my friends, not my family. I was just another guy who faded into the background. And so, I did what I thought was inevitable. I convinced myself that maybe it was time to end it all. Not in any dramatic way, nothing flashy. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want people to make a big deal out of it. I figured I'd just slip away quietly. Nobody would notice. And if they did, they'd move on. Life would go on without me. I don't even remember how long I sat on the couch before I reached for the bottle of pills on the table. I wasn't even really thinking about it anymore. It just felt like the next logical step, like a weight was lifting just by making the decision. I hadn't planned it in detail, but I had a vague idea. Pills, maybe a drink, and that would be it. But I remember holding the bottle in my hand and staring at it, feeling the cold plastic against my palm, thinking, what's the point of even doing this? Everything was too far gone. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I didn't think anyone would care anyway. I can't really explain it, but in that moment, something happened. There was a knock at my door. I don't even know why I got up to answer it. Maybe it was habit. Maybe I was trying to distract myself. I wasn't expecting anyone. I didn't have visitors. When I opened the door, there was a woman standing there. She was in her late 20s, maybe early 30s, with messy brown hair and a look of uncertainty on her face. I didn't recognize her, and she didn't look like she belonged in my apartment complex. She was looking down at her phone, probably searching for something, and then she noticed me standing in the doorway. "Hey," she said, glancing up at me. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Sorry to bother you, but I'm kind of lost. Do you know where the nearest grocery store is?" I stared at her for a moment. It took me a second to register what she had said. A grocery store? Why was she asking me? I felt like I should have said something to send her away. I should have just closed the door and gone back inside. But instead, I just stood there, still holding the bottle of pills in my hand. I don't know," I said, barely above a whisper. I'm not sure why I said it. It wasn't like I had any intention of helping her. She paused, almost like she was waiting for me to say something else, but I couldn't think of anything. "Well, thanks anyway," she said after a moment, but she didn't turn to leave. Instead, she stood there, looking at me with this expression I couldn't quite place. Like she knew something about me that I didn't. I don't know why I did it, but I finally spoke up. "Sorry," I muttered. "I'm just not in the best place right now." She nodded. "I get that," she said quietly. "Life's tough sometimes, huh?" Her words weren't exactly profound. They weren't magic. They weren't going to fix anything. But they were real, and in that moment I realized something. She wasn't trying to fix me. She wasn't trying to tell me how to feel. She was just acknowledging the truth of it. Life is tough. And that small recognition made me hesitate. Before I could say anything else, she turned to walk away, and as she did, she paused for a second, looking over her shoulder. "Hey," she said, as if she just thought of something. "If you ever need someone to talk to, you know where to find me." Then she was gone. I wasn't sure what to make of the woman's words. She had left my door and disappeared into the hallway as quickly as she had come. But her voice lingered in my mind. "If you ever need someone to talk to, you know where to find me." For some reason, that simple line stuck with me. I couldn't understand why it had such an effect. I barely knew this person, and yet something about the way she said it, the sincerity in her eyes, made me pause. No one had spoken to me like that in months, maybe longer. And sure, maybe it wasn't anything special. Just some random person passing by. But for the first time in a long while, it felt like someone cared, really cared, about what was going on in my life. I tried to push it out of my head. After all, I still had the bottle of pills in my hand. I thought about the woman's smile for a second, about how she had looked at me not like I was some broken person, but just a guy who might need help. No pity, no judgment, just understanding. I shook my head. What the hell am I doing? I tossed the pills on the kitchen counter and leaned against the sink, my head spinning. The same thoughts I had been grappling with for months circled back into my mind, overwhelming me again. What was the point? The loneliness, the frustration, the feeling that I was just floating through life without any real purpose. But that moment, that conversation, or whatever the hell it was eating at me. I couldn't get her out of my head. I didn't even know her name. So why did it matter? Why did it even make a difference? I walked back into the living room and sat back down on the couch, feeling like an idiot for letting something so small affect me. My phone was on the coffee table. I stared at it for a few minutes before picking it up and scrolling through my messages. Same old texts. Friends I hadn't seen in months. Empty check-ins from my family. Nothing substantial. I wasn't ready to talk to anyone. I wasn't ready for anything, to be honest. I put my phone back down, and that's when I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. This time it wasn't as casual. It was the same knock, but this time it felt more insistent. Something in the pit of my stomach twisted. My first instinct was to ignore it, to pretend I didn't hear it. But then I froze. I had this weird gut feeling that I had to answer. I got up, slowly this time, my feet feeling heavier than before. I approached the door cautiously, and when I opened it, there she was again. Hey, she said, looking a little unsure of herself this time. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. I didn't know how to react. Part of me wanted to tell her to just go away. I didn't want any more pity. I didn't want anyone to pretend like they could fix me. But there was something about her, something that made me hesitate. "Yeah, I'm fine," I said, trying to sound casual. But even I could tell how hollow it sounded. She raised an eyebrow, not buying it for a second. "You don't look fine." I tried to chuckle, but it came out flat. "Yeah, well, I'm not. But thanks for checking in." She stared at me for a moment, like she could see through the act. Maybe it was my posture, the way I was standing, or maybe it was the obvious signs of exhaustion that were painted all over my face. I had no idea, but whatever it was, she wasn't going to let me brush it off. "Listen," she said, shrugging slightly. "I don't know you and you don't know me, but you don't look like someone who wants to give up. I don't know why I feel that way, but I just do." There it was. Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. She wasn't offering me the usual advice, like, things get better or you'll feel better soon, which honestly always made me want to scream. No, this was different. This was raw, honest, and oddly comforting. She wasn't pretending like she understood my pain, but somehow she was offering a sliver of hope without even trying. I started, but then I paused. What could I say? I hadn't opened up to anyone in so long. I felt like I was failing every time I tried to explain myself. She seemed to notice the hesitation and sighed. "Look, I'm not here to save you or tell you everything's going to be all right. I don't know you. I don't know what you're going through, and I don't have the answers. But something tells me you're not someone who wants to give up." Her words were simple, There was no sugarcoating, no promises, just an observation. And for some reason, that hit harder than anything else. It made me stop. It wasn't about being told everything would magically get better. It wasn't some therapeutic spiel or a glimmer of false hope. It was just her acknowledging that I still mattered, that I wasn't just another person who was giving up without a fight. I stood there for a moment, still unsure of what to say. The pills were still in the kitchen. I had never felt so close to making a choice, and yet here I was, talking to a complete stranger who had no reason to care about me, yet somehow made me reconsider the path I was on. I don't even know what to say to you right now, I admitted. The words felt weak, but it was the truth. She smiled faintly. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to remind you that you're not invisible. She was still standing there, waiting for me to say something, but for some reason, I couldn't. I didn't know if it was because she was right, or if it was because I was just so exhausted. But in that moment, I didn't feel so alone. Without saying anything more, she gave me a soft wave and turned to walk away. Take care of yourself, she called over her shoulder. I didn't know what to expect when I opened the door that second time. It wasn't like I had been actively thinking about her or hoping she'd come back. But when she knocked again, something inside me shifted. It wasn't like the first time, just a random woman asking about a grocery store. This time, there was something different in the air. I felt like I had a choice to make, even if it didn't make any sense. She didn't waste time. There was no small talk, no awkward introductions. She just stood there, looking at me with a gaze that made me feel like she saw me for who I really was, even if I didn't want to see it myself. Look, she said, running her fingers through her wet hair. I don't know if I can help, but I felt like I should come back. You don't have to talk to me if you don't want to. But I think you're the kind of person who's got a lot more going for them than they realize. I'm not here to fix you. I don't even know what you're going through, but I can tell you're not as far gone as you think. I stood there, unsure of what to say. She wasn't offering solutions or preaching some tired motivational speech. It was just real. It was unpolished and raw. Why do you care? I blurted out before I could stop myself. She blinked, slightly caught off guard by the question. I don't know, honestly. I guess I just see someone who's been through some shit, and maybe I've been there too. But I'm not gonna tell you everything's gonna be fine. That's bullshit, and you know it. Her words hit hard. They weren't sugar-coated. They didn't come with a promise of a happy ending, and I felt a strange relief in that. Maybe it was the fact that someone was not trying to fix me. Maybe it was the fact that she didn't see me as broken, just someone who needed a little clarity. I wasn't ready to tell her everything, but there was something about her presence, something genuine in the way she wasn't trying to rush through the conversation. I don't know what's wrong with me, I admitted, feeling stupid as soon as the words left my mouth. I hadn't meant to say it out loud, but somehow, in the moment, it felt like I was saying what I had been afraid to admit to myself for so long. I feel like I've lost everything. My job, Anna. Hell, I don't even recognize myself anymore. I don't know what I'm doing here, and I don't know how to fix it. I paused, swallowing hard, as if saying the words aloud made them real. She didn't look shocked or pitying. She just nodded, her eyes softening. You're not the only one who feels that way. Trust me. Life can throw you some heavy stuff, and it doesn't always make sense, especially when you're in the thick of it. But that doesn't mean it's over. Not unless you let it be. I didn't respond right away. Her words were sinking in, but I still wasn't sure what to make of them. I don't know what I'm supposed to do next, I finally said, feeling like I had just admitted to something that had been haunting me for months. She shrugged. Sometimes you don't have to know right away. Maybe you just have to focus on getting through the day. Do what you can. Little steps. Not everything needs to be figured out all at once. Felt simple. Too simple. But for some reason, it made sense. Maybe I didn't have to make some huge leap to be happy again. Maybe the pressure I'd put on myself to fix everything in an instant was part of what had driven me to the edge in the first place. You really think it's possible to get through this? I asked, still skeptical. I don't know, but I think you're strong enough to try. The honesty in her tone hit me hard. She wasn't offering me empty words. She wasn't pretending like it was all going to magically get better overnight. She was just telling me that it was okay to start small. Maybe I didn't have to have all the answers. Maybe I just had to keep moving. I could feel something shifting inside me, like a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. She looked at her watch, breaking the moment. Look, I don't have much time here. I'm just passing through town for a few days. I've got a bus to catch, and I don't even know if I'll be in the area again. But I'm not here to be your savior or anything. I just wanted you to know that it's okay to keep going, even if it feels like everything's falling apart. I felt a pang of regret that the conversation was ending. I hadn't wanted it to. It felt like there was something real here, something I didn't want to let go of. You're not going to come back, are you? I asked, the words leaving my mouth before I even thought about them. It was a stupid question, but I couldn't help it. She felt like an anchor in a storm I had been lost in for so long. She smiled, but it wasn't a sad smile. It was more like she understood something that I didn't. No, I probably won't. But you don't need me to come back. You just need to start believing you're worth the effort. Her words hit home in a way that left me speechless. I wanted to ask more. I wanted to understand more. But she had already turned to leave. Take care of yourself, Chris, she said, looking over her shoulder as she walked away. I stood there in the doorway, the weight of everything I had been carrying suddenly feeling a little lighter. Not gone, but lighter. I wasn't fixed, but I didn't feel quite as broken as I had just an hour ago. The days that followed felt surreal, like I was walking through a fog, unsure of whether the past week had been real or just some strange dream I had conjured up. After the woman left, I stood in the doorway for a long time, just staring at the spot where she had been, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Her words echoed in my head, repeating over and over like a mantra. You're worth more than you think. But in the days that followed, it was like she had never existed. I didn't hear from her again. No phone call, no message, nothing. I didn't expect there to be. She had made it clear that she wasn't there to fix me. And in the end, that's exactly what I needed. Someone who didn't try to save me, just someone who saw me for what I was in that moment. Alive. I went through the motions of daily life. The apartment was still messy, the bills still piled up, and the loneliness hadn't completely gone away. But something had shifted. The overwhelming weight of the darkness that had been crushing me for months was still there, but it wasn't as suffocating. It didn't feel like the end anymore. I tried to take things one day at a time, like she had said, but it wasn't easy. The days blurred together. I still felt like I was floating through life, but now I had a small flicker of hope. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what changed, whether it was her words or the simple fact that someone had seen me in a way that no one had for a long time, but something inside me was different. And then, just like that, she was gone. No goodbye. No explanation. She didn't even give me her name. I hadn't even asked. I thought about it later, how strange it was that I never asked for her name. It wasn't until much later that I realized how important that was. I wasn't supposed to know everything about her. She wasn't part of the solution. She was just a brief, unexpected encounter. A random act of kindness from a stranger who happened to cross my path. But her absence left a strange emptiness. I wasn't sure if I should be disappointed or grateful. After all, she had given me what I needed, a reason to keep going. Weeks passed, and the memory of our conversation started to fade, replaced by the usual monotony of life. I didn't think much about her anymore. The world kept turning, and I kept moving. And then one day, about a month later, I ran into someone I used to know. Someone from my past. It was nothing major, just a chance meeting at a coffee shop. We exchanged pleasantries, talked for a few minutes, and that was it. But then, out of nowhere, they mentioned her. Hey, you remember Sarah from the old bookstore, right? They asked. I stared at them blankly. Tall, brown hair, a little quirky. She used to work there about 2 years ago? My stomach dropped. Sarah. I hadn't even realized it at the time, but that was her name. The woman who had changed everything for me in a single conversation. The stranger who had shown up on my doorstep, offered me those simple words of truth, and left just as quickly as she came. Her name was Sarah. But that wasn't all. Apparently, Sarah had been a regular at a local coffee shop where I used to go to drown my sorrows in silence. I had never noticed her before, but she had known my name. She had heard about me from someone I knew, an old friend of a friend. I had no idea how or why our paths had crossed, but somehow, in the randomness of life, we had been closer than I ever could have imagined. I didn't know if this was fate or coincidence, but for some reason, it made the whole encounter feel even more significant. After that conversation, I went home, my mind racing. I realized that Sarah had never meant to fix me. She wasn't meant to play a big role in my life. But somehow, she had been there, in the right place at the right time, offering me exactly what I needed without even realizing it. And now she was just gone. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that she had shown up when I needed her most. That moment had changed me, even if it was brief. I never saw Sarah again. I don't know where she went or if I ever will. I don't even know if she'll ever think about me again. But the truth is, I'll never forget her. I'll never forget the impact she had on my life, no matter how fleeting it was. I still think about her sometimes, especially when things get tough. I don't know if she'll ever know how much she changed my life, but I hope she does. I hope she knows that she gave me something I didn't have before, a reason to keep going. I'm doing better now. It's not easy, and I still have bad days, but I'm trying, one step at a time. And every time I feel like giving up, I remember what she said to me, that I wasn't as far gone as I thought, that I was worth more than I realized. And that small shift in perspective is what keeps me moving forward.